Hey guys, welcome to Celia's Playlists. I am here today with Lisa Lawrence, who is a pop Americana singer-songwriter from Connecticut. Lisa, I am so excited to have you here today. How's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me and for doing this work.
Of course, I'm so excited for us to get into things today. Will you start us off with a little bit of your background and I guess musical history?
Sure. Well, I started out as a singer in choir when I was in high school, and then I actually really wanted to be a dancer. And unfortunately, I was in a car accident and I couldn't dance anymore. So while I was recovering, I dusted off my guitar and I started playing and I just started writing songs. I did eventually go to school for music. I went and I got a degree in music theory and vocal performance from a state college. And then after that, I just hit the road and I just played a lot of shows and recorded albums for decades, actually. I was also in a band that did alt Americana music. And now I am kind of taking a break from performing and I record my own music and I am learning to produce my own music. I produce my own music.
I love that you have like a varied background within your I guess I'm gonna go with musical history. That's what I'm gonna call it on this show. So within your musical history, I have a few questions about the past, and then we'll make our way
Sure.
to the
Yeah.
present. So I know that you've been performing for a while. What types of places and what types of music were you performing? Because I may have mentioned the word cover, and you said you don't do covers.
So I tried really hard to learn covers way back in the very beginning, and I just like had no attention span for it. I would just get really easily distracted and just start writing my own songs, and so I just decided to go with that. And so in the beginning, I played a ton of open mics, and I still love to play open mics. I love to meet other musicians and just kind of talk in about music and support other musicians and just hear other music too. Because I'm a fan of music before I'm a musician. Like I am a total fan of music first. So I did a bunch of open mics and then I just traveled a lot in New England, and I would do things like go and play a show. So if you're not from New England, our states are very close together. So you could go 2 states away, play a show, drive home, and be back at work. And I did that for a really long time. And then I was in a band. We went to Nashville for a while and just kind of played a bunch of shows there. And I played mostly up until I have children. So once I had children, it kind of slowed down the playing. And I was also an educator. I was a music teacher. So that part was just like really fun. Nothing kind of tests your musical abilities and make sure you're on your toes, and being in front of a bunch of high school kids who are going to tell you whether or not it sounds good. So I I did that, and now I just produce my music, and hopefully want to get back out there and play pretty soon. I miss it. Some of my favorite places to play were just kind of um, in Nashville. There's this place, I think it was called I always get it wrong, the Spring Water, I believe. It was just kind of this really cool bar, and I could not get a gig there. So I was like staying in Nashville with my friend, and I just kept, I don't know, the timing and the email and everything was really crazy. So we basically would like play all these writers' nights, because in Nashville they have all these writers' nights. So I would go and I would play these writers' nights, and then like every night end up at the bar, which was not like a horrible place to be, and just waited until there was a cancellation. And one time there was a cancellation. I was like, we will take it. We will be here. We'll take it. And I just wanted to play there. Like it's just kind of this really cool place to play. And so yeah, that's probably one of my favorite places to play. And then just some local places. My band, that we don't play a lot anymore, but we just did, every year we played a Christmas Eve show. We did it. This was, I think, our 15th or 16th annual Christmas Eve. and we always played in the same bar except for COVID. For COVID, we went online like one year, but we played the same bar. It was a local bar, and so we just relocated to a brewery in Connecticut, and I'm kind of new to breweries because I haven't gotten out very much for the past like 5 years. But it was a great place to play. It was a great venue. So I was sad that like so many venues that I've played, so many of my favorite places have closed because I'm doing this for like 25 years. But there's some new ones that are open, so it's nice to discover like new places to play.
I think that you have so many things that I want to touch on in all of these stories, but I also want to make sure that we get to the future. But I really like the determination that you mentioned for getting a gig at the place that you want to get a gig.
Yeah.
I think that's not something that people really think about. They're just like, oh no, why am I not getting booked these days? And thinking outside of the box like that is something that is going to really set you apart as an artist because if you weren't there and you weren't checking out, like if they
Mm-hmm.
were having any cancellations, you wouldn't have gotten, one of your is it a stretch to say dream places to play?
I think it was just a place to play in Nashville. Like it was
That's
hard to
fair.
play a
But
place
it's hard to
there.
get into Nashville.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the point. So like,
yeah,
waiting it out and like waiting for a place that's a really cool like, place to be, really paid off for you.
yeah. And I think so. Way back when I first started playing music, someone gave me some really good advice, and they were just like, make friends. And I mean, like, I'm a pretty friendly person most of the time. I'd like to think so. I wasn't gonna not make friends, but like the human aspect of it, or just I've been around forever. I used to have to call for gigs on the phone, and just I kind of learned that if you can put like a personality and a face and an actual human behind the emails, then people are less likely to say no because they have to say no to your face, not an email.
I agree with that, and especially like I'm someone that puts myself online all the time. Like I make videos, and we're even talking face to face right now. Well, face to
Hmm.
face through a video camera, but this is going to have a lasting impact for both of us having an actual conversation rather
Yeah,
just than just like exchanging a message, because a message or an email, like it's just text, and this is way more than that.
yeah.
So, I think that that's something that people need to keep in mind, especially because people can be nameless on these things these days. It's
Oh
great to
yes.
actually put a face to a name, and it can really make a difference. But I want
Yep.
to continue on our questions
Sure.
because I want to make sure that we get to the stuff that you
No
want to talk
problem.
about, which is the producing. So, real quick, before the
Yeah.
producing, I know that you have an extensive background in stage performance. Like, what drew you to wanting to be a stage performer? And, like, we will continue forward to where you are
Sure.
right now as a producer.
So I had just like horrible stage fright, the worst stage fright, and I still do. Um, and so like I wanted to get over it because I just wanted to get my songs out there, and I wanted to get out in front of people. And so what I did to get over it was I just booked myself. So I did these kind of like open mics, but they were all pre-scheduled with just a bunch of other musicians, and it was like networking, it was singing. My first one was in New York City in just like this crazy crowded place, and I booked 15 of them in a row. Um, and I just like did it. So I couldn't even think about it. And um, with the intent of getting over stage fright. Like if I do this enough and I learn to trust myself, I think that's the most important thing, is like when you get on stage and you perform and you're like, that was not a disaster. Like I can do this. Then you start to build confidence in your ability to just keep on getting out there and just doing it over and over again. So I knew myself, and I knew that if I just kept doing it, I would get better at it. Um, and I had seen so many of my friends in bands in like the 90s, and I was just ridiculously jealous, like really jealous. And so I'm like, I need to do this. Like, I want to do this so badly. I have crazy stage fright. How am I going to get over this? Just 15 nights almost in a row. I think I had a little bit of a break and I was working. So I was like doing that thing where I was driving like a state away or New York, waking up, going to work. But by the end of it, I didn't even feel like the same performer. It was just like, it was how I thought, like, wanted it to be, what my goal was. Um, and so that's kind of what drew me to performing, was just, it was a big challenge for me. Um, and I also um, I like sharing my songs, and I like kind of getting up there with a set list, but not really following it, kind of like feeling, like what kind of crowd it is. Like, is this a rowdy night, or is this kind of like a quiet, contemplative crowd? And it kind of changes what I play. So I like the feedback from the audience and just kind of that interaction.
I love that you mentioned that, because that's another thing that people don't usually think about when performers are in front of them. They just see the performer, but not all of the things that you're evaluating and the energy that you're taking from the crowd and all of those types of things to
Mm-hmm.
impact the experience of that show for the night. So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
really cool.
thanks. Yeah, I like to think of the audience as part of the show. Otherwise, you're just like practicing in my room. And I did some of those things where I would go online and play during COVID. And like, I still like that because, people are like texting and like interacting and asking questions. And it was just like, it was really, I had a lot of fun with that. Just being able to answer questions in real time. Like, what do you want me to play next? Text it, send it. And so that interaction with the audience is really important.
I'm glad that you were able to still have that during COVID. So that's really cool. But let's move forward. So now I know
Yes.
that you're
Okay.
producing music. So,
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that journey, because, producing is a whole other hat than performing or
Yes.
booking, or even, you mentioned that you were educating. It's a whole different ball game. So what made you want to self-produce?
Well, every time I made an album, my chair just would get closer and closer and closer to like the control center. um, and I had like worked with some really great producers, some really great sound engineers. But it's so hard to hear something in your head and communicate it, even with all of the musical knowledge. I mean, certain sounds, and be like, I'd come in with, say, random things like, I want it to sound like I'm sitting on the back of the hill at Great Woods on a summer night. That's what I want the guitar to sound like. And people are like, what does that mean? And now I know. I was like, reverb, long reverb. That's what I want. But like, nobody knew what I was talking about back then, but I could hear it in my head. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
you're getting there and you're getting closer. And technology now has just come so far. Like, I went to school for theory and composition. I remember working on a composition. This is like 2001 or 2002, using this program, and like, you boot it up and like go to lunch, you come back and like, there it is. And when I started producing in like 2000, 2021 or 2022, like, you can get the BBC orchestra for free at like the tip of your fingers in 10 minutes in a download. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't think I could have done it any sooner because I really needed technology to be the way it is right now. So I was just like, my mind was like blown, and I'm like, I can't believe that I can do this. This is crazy. And I had always been doing like GarageBand, always like doing demos. I even did something on like a 4-track, which is like archaic and really frustrating. But so I'd always kind of had my hands in the recording a little bit, but when, I didn't know whether or not I was going to get on the stage again for a while. And I was like, I had all these songs and a wealth of free information on the internet. Um, so I just started to go for it and just learning and kind of taking my time. Like, sometimes I take a long time to do a project. And it's not because I like don't know what I'm doing. I really enjoy it. It's kind of like if you're reading a book you really like and you don't want it to end, you kind of like take your time. And um, so plus I was learning as I was going. So right now I am just working on a project that I have coming out, and like I'm really, excited about it because it's the first thing that I'm going to be like, I produced this and it's more than one song. um, and I love producing. It takes like all the skills and kind of like the things that I've worked on for a really long time and just puts it all into like one little like package of, this is how you do it.
I gotcha, I gotcha. So tell me a little bit about your process. Do you hear the music first? Do you write the lyrics first? Like, how do you go about, creating a song in your producing style?
Um, so for producing, I have a couple different processes because I kind of feel like I'm coming from really different worlds. So I have like this kind of pop um, singer pop. Like I grew up listening to like Depeche Mode and Madonna, and so I have this pop. Like if you put Madonna and Depeche Mode, I've got like these songs where I feel like it's this genre, and that's all about the sounds. Like you can get so many sounds from different instruments and plugins and synthesizers and all that. So sometimes I'll hear a sound and start with that. And usually I have most of the song written. So most of the song is written either at my piano or at my guitar. And if it's written on my piano, then it's like going one direction. And if it's written on my guitar, it's like a totally different direction, usually. So for the piano, eventually it ends up being sketched out onto the computer using usually like a bass sound that I've kind of picked to be like the main tone of the
It's like the
song.
vibe, right? Like
Yes,
to
the
build the
vibe.
vibe. Hmm.
Yes. Yep. And then and so that's how I start if I'm doing something like that. And then if I'm doing the singer-songwriter thing, usually it starts with a sketch of the guitar, the vocals, and then build out around that.
I gotcha. I gotcha. We're coming towards the end of the interview. I want to
Sure.
ask you one more question about
Sure.
producing, and then I'm going to ask you my big question of the day. So,
Okay.
what is your favorite part of the producing process? Is my question. Like, what has developed into your favorite part now that you've been jumping into like the DAWs and all of the the millions of sound effects and things like that you now know are at your fingertips? Like, what has been the most meaningful part to you?
My favorite part is what I call play day. And it is just let the ideas come, put them down as they come. They don't have to be perfect, just the sounds, and let all the sounds build as I hear it, as I'm just kind of feeling it at the time without kind of overthinking and all that, knowing that I can go back and I can always take something away. But when you're in that kind of state of like creative flow, I just kind of let it all, like come out and put it onto the computer. And I try to work pretty quickly and pretty imperfectly. But that's my favorite part because that feels like the most creative part.
That's awesome. And that actually leads into my last question, which is this is a very general question, and you can change, direction however you want, whether it's about stage, whether about producing, whether about writing, whatever it is. If someone came to you today and said, like, I want to start doing this, what would be your big piece of advice?
Um, I would say that if it were producing, because I do think about this as a producer, um, in the world of music and technology and gear and all that stuff, it is so easy to hold yourself back because you can always say, "Oh, I don't have the right microphone. I don't have the right this, and I don't have the right that." And it's easy for people to hold you back too for those reasons because if when you start going down the rabbit hole of audio and production and all this stuff, you'll learn really quickly that like it can get very expensive, but it doesn't have to be at all. In the beginning, you just have to go for it and you have to use what you have and like develop the skills and be creative with what you have. And for example, like I had this really inexpensive microphone way when I started, and I just went back to that microphone because it's my favorite one. I absolutely love it. I didn't want to, and today I broke it out and I was like, oh my gosh, of everything I've done and everything I've used, this is still the one. But it's so easy to get caught up into I don't have this, I don't have that, but you grow through the whole process and you kind of realize like I don't need that, or oh, a year ago I would have gone for that piece of gear, but that would have been wrong for me because this, suits what I want to do more. So I think my biggest advice is just to like go for it. No matter like what, if it's a free DAW or a really inexpensive microphone or borrowed gear or whatever it is, um, or the microphone on your phone. So I sometimes get really good
You
recordings with my
know,
phone microphone.
I worked at a TV company once that like literally someone went in the back room in the closet, recorded voice over like this, and they put it on the air. So
Yep.
like, you know,
Yeah.
you're right. Like, you know, you can't limit yourself due to gear. It's a barrier that a lot of people let get in front of them, and you know, allowing that to be the reason that you don't start is probably a reason that you may never start.
Yes, you will never have enough gear.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you never have enough gear. That's what I keep telling myself. So if I use that as an excuse, then I'll just never do it.
Exactly. But now we're towards the end of the interview. So,
Yeah.
Lisa, where can people find you, find your music,
Oh,
and follow you?
my website, www.lisalawrencerocks.com, is kind of the hub for everything.
Awesome. So, you guys have to make sure you check out Lisa there. And thank you so much for sitting
Thank
down with me
you.
today. I had so much fun in this conversation,
Me
and
too. Me
I look
too. Thank
forward to like
you.
seeing what you are up to next.
Thank
So,
you.
thanks again, and to everyone watching, I will see you guys in the next interview. Bye, guys.
Bye.